Imagine finding a small 1968 Liberty One dime in your pocket, in an old jar of change, or tucked away in a coin album and thinking it's just worth 10 cents, the coin's face value. Now imagine that exact same tiny coin could be worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars because of rare minting errors, mistakes, and variations that occurred when it was struck at the United States Mint. What if the dime you've always taken for granted could be hiding real numismatic treasure? Today we're going to dive deep into the fascinating world of the 1968 Roosevelt dime, exploring its history and circulation, the ways most examples are simply face value coins, and most importantly, the errors, anomalies, and rare varieties that change everything about this small piece of metal, making certain ones extremely valuable to collectors. The Roosevelt dime series began in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt shortly after his death. The design was created by John R. Sinnock and replaced the earlier Mercury dime. On the obverse it features Roosevelt's profile, and on the reverse a torch flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. By 1968 the Roosevelt dime had been in production for over 20 years and was one of the most familiar coins in everyday American circulation. That year marked a key change in U.S. minting. It was the first year after the 3-year mint mark removal of 1965-1967 that mint marks returned to coinage, and for Roosevelt dimes all three mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, produced coins. The mint mark location was placed above the date on the obverse, something that hadn't been done in the mid-1960s. The Philadelphia Mint produced a large number of coins with no mint mark, the Denver Mint stamped them with A, D, and the San Francisco Mint produced proof dimes marked with an S, primarily for collector sets. In terms of everyday circulation and standard collector value for most coins, the story of the 1968 dime begins and ends with face value. The vast majority of 1968 Roosevelt dimes, whether they were struck at Philadelphia or Denver for regular commerce, are worth just 10 cents in circulated condition because they were made in enormous numbers and many have since worn through decades of use. Even uncirculated, perfectly struck business strikes, the everyday coins produced for spending, typically only garner modest premiums in collector markets, often a few dollars at most if they are in uncirculated condition without any special attributes or errors. Most coin value guides show that standard 1968 business strike dimes from either Philadelphia or Denver are worth about 10 cents in circulated grades and only move a few dollars in high uncirculated grades. One of the key distinctions in the 1968 Roosevelt dime series is that mint mark placement returned that year. During the coin shortages and policy changes of the mid-1960s, mint marks had been removed to discourage hoarding. But beginning in 1968, mint marks once again appeared on the obverse of dimes, placed above the date, so collectors and users could distinguish where each coin was struck, whether at Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. This was the first year since 1964 that the mint mark was on the obverse, making 1968 a transitional and noteworthy date for Roosevelt dimes. For typical collectors, the return of the mint mark vaulted 1968 into a more interesting category of coin simply because it gave people something to collect, the different mint mark combinations. But in terms of value, regular struck coins without special designations remain common. Standard 1968 dimes with no mint mark Philadelphia strikes might be worth around 10 cents in circulated condition and up to perhaps a few dollars in high uncirculated grades. Likewise, 1968 D Denver dimes generally hold similar values in regular grades. Proof coins struck at the San Francisco Mint, intended for collectors rather than circulation, typically command slightly higher values, often a few dollars for regular proofs and more for designated cameo or deep cameo examples. However, beyond those everyday values lies a stunning array of rare and collectible 1968 Roosevelt dime varieties and errors, some of which are among the most famous and valuable modern U.S. coins. The range of these rarities covers dramatic proof errors, double die varieties, full strike designations, and other unusual mint mistakes that cause dramatic value divergence from face value. Some of these error coins are so rare that they are worth five-figure sums in auctions, while others are collectible intermediate varieties worth hundreds or even thousands. One of the most famous of all 1968 Roosevelt dime rarities is the 1968 No-S proof dime. In that year, the San Francisco Mint struck proof dimes for collector sets that were all supposed to be marked with the S mint mark. But in a rare minting mistake, one or more proof dies mistakenly D. Now, we're going to explore the full picture from the typical circulation history and face value coins to the rare errors that make some examples truly valuable and sought after. The Roosevelt dime has been a mainstay of American coinage since it replaced the Mercury dime in 1946, honoring President Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his legacy. The design by John R. Sinek features Roosevelt's bust on the obverse and a torch flanked by branches on the reverse, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. For decades dimes have passed through countless hands in everyday transactions, and the 1983 Roosevelt dime is no exception. That year, the United States Mint produced a substantial number of dimes at the Philadelphia P Mint, striking over 647 million business strike coins, making this issue very common in circulation. These coins were made from a copper-nickel clad composition with virtually no precious metal value, and for everyday use they served purely as 10-cent units of currency. For the typical coin collector or someone simply spending change, a 1983 P dime that shows wear from pocket use and circulation is generally worth about 10 cents because that remains its face value. Average circulated examples, even those that look crisp to the unaided eye, usually offer no substantial premium at coin shops or online marketplaces. Many coin price guides list these common circulated 1983 P dimes at around 10 cents to a few tens of cents at most depending on condition, with modest increases if the coin is uncirculated with original luster. Some sources place the value of these common business strike coins in uncirculated grades at a few dollars, often around $4 to $10 in the highest non-error state without special designations. But this ordinary baseline face value or modest uncirculated premiums only tells part of the story. Once you start looking for errors, unusual mint mark situations, and rare varieties, the value landscape changes dramatically. Error and variety coins represent moments in the minting process where something unexpected happened, whether it was a misstep in die preparation, a misalignment in striking, a planchet anomaly, or a mistake in applying the mint mark. While the vast majority of 1983 dimes are typical coins with low collector value, certain error types and rare features make specific examples highly coveted and sometimes quite valuable. One of the first major areas of interest for 1983 Roosevelt dimes is the no-S proof error. Proof dimes from 1983 were struck at the San Francisco Mint and were supposed to bear an S mint mark. However, a very small number of proof dimes were struck without the S mint mark on the obverse. These error coins are remarkable because they display the mirror-like fields and frosted devices typical of proof strikes but lack the mint mark that identifies them as San Francisco products. These are not just ordinary proofs missing a mark, they are genuine proof quality coins preserved on dies that somehow escaped the mint without the mint mark being punched into the die. These 1983 no-S proof dimes are extremely scarce compared to the millions of ordinary proofs struck that year. Because of that rarity, they command high prices in the numismatic market. According to value guides, a no-S proof in PR70 deep cameo condition, meaning essentially perfect under magnification with ultra-sharp contrast between frosted devices and mirror fields, has been valued historically from around $2,760 up to approximately $10,560 or more at auction, making it one of the most valuable varieties in the 1983 dime series. Other no-S proofs in slightly lower proof grades still attract strong premiums, often several hundred to a few $1,000s depending on grade and eye appeal. These coins are prized because they are so rare and represent a minting defect that most collectors never see in person. It's important to understand that these no-S proof dimes aren't simply common proofs with missing mint marks due to post-mint damage or cleaning, they are genuine mint errors. Authenticating them requires a careful look at the area where the mint mark should appear and an understanding of proof characteristics such as mirrored fields and cameo contrast. Collectors and grading services typically scrutinize these coins closely because there are also counterfeit or altered coins that attempt to mimic this error by removing the mint mark. Genuine 1983 no-S proofs exhibit pristine proof finishes and the absence of the mint mark without any signs of tampering. Even apart from the no-S proof rarity, there are high-grade and full-band strike designations that make certain 1983 P dimes collectible. In the world of Roosevelt dimes, one of the most sought-after attributes for business strike coins is the full band's FB designation. This designation indicates that the horizontal bands on the torch on the reverse are completely and fully separated with clear. We're going to go deep into the entire story of the 1990 D dime, how it was made, how it circulated, why most are common and only worth 10 cents, and most importantly all of the rare ways these coins can break the mold and become valuable collectibles that make coin enthusiasts' hearts race when they find them. The 1990 Roosevelt dime belongs to one of the most enduring and recognizable coin series in United States history. The Roosevelt Dime series, introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin Delano Roosevelt shortly after his death. Roosevelt was not only a towering political figure who led the nation through challenging times, but he was closely associated with the March of Dimes campaign to fight polio, which made his likeness on the dime especially meaningful to the American public. The design by engraver John R. Sinek features Roosevelt's left-facing profile on the obverse, and on the reverse a torch for liberty flanked by an olive branch for peace and an oak branch for strength. That design, with only modest tweaks, has remained in continuous production for decades, becoming one of the most familiar small change coins in everyday American life. In 1990, the Denver Mint, represented by the D Mint mark, struck hundreds of millions of these dimes for everyday circulation. According to numismatic data, the total mintage of 1990 D Roosevelt dimes was 839,995,824 coins, making them very common coins in circulation. Because the U.S. Mint produced this coin in such enormous numbers, and because these coins were used in everyday commerce, most 1990 D dimes you find, whether in pocket change, coin jars, or rolled coin bags, are worth exactly 10 cents when traded. A typical circulated example without any special traits retails for about 10 cents to 35 cents depending on wear and condition, with modest premiums over face value only in near-uncirculated grades. For most collectors, a normal 1990 D dime is not something to move markets or cause excitement by itself. Even uncirculated examples, coins that have never been spent and still show original mint luster, are generally not extremely valuable unless they are in high mint state grades with ideal quality. An uncirculated 1990 D dime graded MS60 through MS62 might be worth a few dollars in collector price guides, and gem uncirculated grades like MS65 are often valued $8 to $15 or more depending on grading service and market conditions. Standard uncirculated dimes from 1990 without any special strike quality or variety are often pleasant additions to collection sets but typically not major investments. But while most 1990 D dimes are common and worth minimal premiums over face value, there's a rich world of error coins, rarities, and specialized collector traits that can cause the exact same coin to be worth far more. These are the coins that make people keep checking their pocket change, roll after roll of old dimes, and long-forgotten bags of coins from savings jars, because every dime has the potential to be surprising. To understand why, we need to look at how coins are produced and how mistakes can be created and preserved. The United States Mint produces coins via massive coining presses that feed blank metal discs called planchets into pairs of dies that stamp the obverse and reverse designs with immense pressure. In the ideal world, every planchet is perfectly centered under the dies, every die is immaculate, and every press operation produces a flawless coin. In reality, even with modern automated production, the minting process involves many steps and complex machinery, and occasional mistakes happen. When such mistakes occur and are not detected and removed before the coins enter circulation, they become error coins, coins that differ from the intended normal design in ways that are visible and interesting to collectors. The rarer and more dramatic the error, the more value it can command. One of the first possibilities that coin collectors examine for 1990 dimes is the strike quality and design detail, particularly something known as full bands, sometimes also referred to as full torch bands. On the reverse of every Roosevelt dime, the torch features horizontal bands that represent the torch's texture and shape. In normal mass production, especially in high-speed presses, many coins do not receive a full, complete impression of these bands. They may show weak band definition or partially merged surfaces due to die wear or lighter striking pressure. But coins that show fully separated, sharply defined horizontal bands across the torch are considered superior strike quality and are designated FB full bands by professional grading services. These coins are more scarce relative to ordinary strikes because strong striking happens less often under high-volume production conditions. A 1990 D dime with certified full bands in a high mint state grade, especially MS65 FB, MS66 FB, or MS67 FB, can command significant premiums because collector